Letting out a flat for income takes a lot of organisation and forward planning. If you get it right, it could become a great investment, but there are some significant risks. There are no guarantees attached to the housing market. The value of your property and any income from it can go down as well as up. And there are lots of possible pitfalls. And it's worth remembering that when it comes to selling your buy-to-let, it will only be worth what someone is prepared to pay for it. It should be viewed as a long-term investment, and it can take time to sell, which means you can't immediately access your funds if you need to do so. There are many considerations to bear in mind, not least the cost of buying, maintaining and selling your property and the legal requirements you will need to meet. If you sell it, you may be subject to capital gains tax. And of course, you may have to pay tax on any profit you make from renting it. Buy-to-let mortgages. Typically, this type of mortgage has higher fees, has higher interest rates, needs a larger deposit, typically 20 to 40%, and this type of mortgage is interest only, so owners have a repayment sum to pay at the end of the term. Ideally, the rent as a percentage of the property value should be higher than 7%. This can help you decide how much to spend and where to buy. You should research property costs and rents in each area. You should plan a budget for small repairs and occasional redecoration. My suggestion would be £250 a year for small repairs and around £2,000 every 5 years for refurbishment. But this could easily add up to more if you need to fit new carpets, install a new appliance, or replace a boiler. Many landlords use letting agents to help them find and screen new tenants, including doing right-to-rent checks and drawing up letting contracts. This service typically costs you the equivalent of the first month's rent. But for an additional fee, you can also ask your letting agents to manage the property, which may involve collecting the rent, dealing with tenants' queries, and handling repairs. Of course, you'll need to be able to pay for repairs out of your own pocket. However, it may be worth considering managing the property yourself to help save money. If you have a mortgage for your buy-to-let property, the lender will expect you to have a buildings insurance policy, and you may want to include contents insurance, especially if the property will be furnished, and also rental insurance to help protect you if your tenants default on the rent. Your letting agents can likely organize this for you as part of their management service, or you can buy it independently if you're managing the property yourself. Make sure you budget for times when you don't have a tenant. Utility bills, including water, gas and electricity, will continue even if usage is low or nil, and you will be liable for council tax on an empty second home. You might be able to apply for a reduction in council tax if the property is empty while you're refurbishing it. It will be best to check with your local authority for their eligibility criteria. If you buy a house, it is likely to be freehold, but many flats are leasehold, and leases can vary in length. You will generally need to pay the freeholder annual ground rent and a maintenance charge through a management company for any general repairs and upkeep, with the cost of any larger projects shared out between all the leaseholders. If you buy a freehold flat, you'll need to agree on how you'll share costs with any other owners in the building, from small jobs to big repairs like fixing the roof. This can lead to problems if freeholders disagree over the level and cost of repairs. It can also be much more difficult to get a mortgage on a freehold flat. Major improvement costs to communal buildings cover things like security access, lifts, stairs, and the garden, and you generally have to pay even if you don't use these facilities. For example, ground floor owners may resent paying for a lift they never use. You used to be able to deduct mortgage expenses like the interest on the mortgage to reduce your tax bill. This was phased out in 2020 and is now capped at 20% of the interest on the mortgage. So this is no change for basic rate taxpayers, but additional and higher tax rate payers will find that they can offset less of their expense. Speaking of expenses, you can set off running expenses for your buy-to-let property against tax. This will include any repairs to the property and the costs of engaging letting agents, including finding a tenant, drawing up a contract, and managing the property. In England and Northern Ireland, you'll pay 3% extra in stamp duty on any buy-to-let property or second home worth over £40,000. The only exception is if your first property is a buy-to-let, where you will pay no additional stamp duty. In Scotland, you will pay land and buildings transaction tax, and in Wales, land transaction tax. As a landlord, you will need to ensure gas, electrical and fire safety in your property, with regular tests and certification. In some areas, you will have to get a license from the local authority to allow you to let your property. This likely needs to be renewed every 5 years. However, be aware that properties with evidence of poor management or other house-related problems may be given a shorter license depending on the problem. Energy efficiency. You need to have an Energy Performance Certificate or an EPC to show tenants. Rental properties need an EPC rating of at least E, but that is changing. Landlords now have until 2025 to make sure their properties achieve a Band C rating or above for new tenancies, and by 2028 for existing tenancies. So should you become a buy-to-let landlord? The answer is to do your sums first. And if you do take the plunge, ensure you keep a sharp eye on any tax changes that may affect your net income. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please do give it a like and consider subscribing. Why not share this video with someone else you think may benefit from it? And if you have any questions or comments, leave them for me below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. I've been Tesh from The Form Filler. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.